Hello, and welcome back to Infinite Roleplay Dungeon. Today, my name is Nelson, your humble slayer of players, dungeon cartographer, dungeon master, and all-around crazy guy. um, anyways, I got a little ahead of myself. I enjoy mapping, I enjoy doing dungeons, and with the steps that we covered in episodes 1 through 3, I came up with this bad boy. It's unfinished. I stopped working on it because I realized I really was supposed to be sharing the process with you. So we'll take a very quick look at it, and then I'll discuss the techniques involved in making it. Just a quick once over. So you can see the grid in the cave area is that little hatchy hatch grid. Hatchy hatch, 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 hatch. Hatchy. What was that show? Reminds me of my baby girl's, one of my baby girl's favorite shows. Yo Gabba Gabba. Oh, Yo Gabba Gabba. It's like a dancey dance. Hatchy hatch, 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 hatch. Anyways, and the clear white grids inside. So, I'll close this and I'll start open a new file. So open new 300 pixel per inch. I want to make sure I get the exact inches that I want. So 8.5 by 11. Or let's do a landscape version. Let's go 11 inches wide by 8.5 inches high. All right. Now, I always make new layers instead of the background. For the effect, we're going to need approximately 4 layers. So I'm going to create the layers now. 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. The background layer is the background hatch, right? That's the cross-hatching pattern we made before. So, background hatch. Layer 2 could be, say, the cave system, right? Cave system. Layer 3 could be the dungeon, the mining facility. And layer 4 is the working layer. Now let's go through layer by layer. Choose the bucket tool. I'm just going to select a gray so we have something that we can see we're doing. So fill the entire layer. Double click the layer to bring up layer properties, pattern overlay, and then select our hatchy hatch hatch pattern. Not the one that has obvious seams, but the one we cleaned up and looks pretty. Click OK. Then add a layer mask to the background layer. Mask everything. We no longer see our pattern. When we're creating our dungeon, afterwards we'll unmask specific areas, and what this is going to allow us to do is to make changes to our hatch layer when we add, remove, or do anything special without having to go through any extensive process. Now for the cave system. Well, let's fill the cave system with a color to place our patterns on top of. Double click, pattern overlay. This is our hatchy hatch layer. We're also going to need to apply a stroke, and let's make the stroke 10 pixels wide. Once again, adding a mask and masking everything. Finally, our mining facility layer. Fill it in with a color. Double click, pattern overlay. We're going to stick with this pattern and decrease the size to 25% because it'll match up with the 1/4 inch. Because if you remember in, I believe, the first episode when we made this square pattern, we did it to fit an entire inch. So 25% of an inch is a 1/4 inch, and when we made our hatchy hatch grid, we used 1/4 inch spacing, so they'll line up perfectly. And again, we'll add a stroke. The stroke is to behave like the walls, all right, the walls in your facility. And as in the other two previous layers, we're going to apply a mask and hide everything. Now, Control apostrophe to turn on your grid. Zoom in a bit so we can get a better look at what's going on. It's coming from somewhere over here. Select your selection tool, your rectangular marquee, and go to View and ensure that your snaps are turned on and Snap to Grid is checked. This is going to allow us to create our dungeon, a layout for our dungeon and cave system that snaps to the 1/4 inch points of the grid, which will line up 100% with the patterns we created. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. Let me see if I turn this on, if they're more visible. Yeah, they are. Okay, beautiful. So we're going to get all that beautiful, beautiful visibility. Use our marquee tool. And just, wait, this is the add one? Is this the add one? It is. Beautiful. So, can you see that? Obviously, my thing is covering it. You can either hold the shift button, or in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, you get a little marquee selection where you can do some editing. There's the standard select, and then there's the additive select, so that you don't have to hold down on the shift constantly. You can do it whichever way you want, honestly. Now, the dungeon I'm going to do with this specific design, with how I'm putting it together, how the grid is laid out, you will be able to reproduce this as dungeon tiles if you craft using Scotty's method, Scotty's 2.5D method, DMG's 2.5D method. If you're using Hearst Arts or Master Maze, who makes Master Maze again? The guys that make Master Maze. If you're using their tiles, this will be able to translate directly to all of that, as well as anyone like Heroic Maps or Frank Turfler Jr. who make battle maps, or myself later on when I do get into crafting battle maps, drawing them up. It will be a direct, you could port it directly 100%. The grids could be 5 or 10 foot squares, your choice depending on how big you want the map to be, and roll with it. So let's roll with it. Let's make this pretty quick. I don't know if I'm going to time-lapse this or do this real time or whatever, but here we go. Enough talking. Or maybe I should learn how to talk and work on things of this nature. Probably would be a lot better if I learned how to do that. Chat. Why does that come down that way? Let's remove that. That is the entrance. They go hello, hello, hello. I can't do that because then I get that issue. Let's take this whole bit off. I want full squares. And since that is the entrance, we'll drag that down like this. No, we won't, because it doesn't line up right. Not like this. We'll do that one up once again, and we'll add this to the mix. The part with this over here. Add a little bit of a room. Let's get a chain of rooms. It's not very large rooms, maybe they're little bunks for the miners or whatever, I don't know. And give the miners their little bunks. Now, this may not make total sense, but your basic layout is the marching ants. Alright, let's add some sort of just large room over here. Let's make that, what, 2, can I make that 3 inches square without going bananas? I don't know, looks like it's going to be kind of banana size, big. Let's zoom out so we can get a better look at our marching ants. And basically what we're doing is, after we get a layout that we like, and we can see our dungeon taking shape with these marching ants, we go to Edit, Fill, Fill with the foreground color, it doesn't really matter, and Continue Mapping. Right? I'm going to show you how this is going to make sense. When we're done, we can save this as whatever, come back to it at any time, and keep mapping our dungeon in this fashion so that we can turn off the working layer, because the working layer was never meant to be visible in the final mapping product. But we can hold down the control key on our keyboard and left click the picture of the working layer, and it selects all the pixels in the working layer, and we get our marching ants back. So then by going to the mining facility, making sure that we have the masking, the mask selected for our mining facility layer, or our dungeon layer, regardless of whatever you name it, we go to Edit, Fill, Foreground Color, making sure that the foreground color is white, because white reveals the mask. Okay, I'll deselect that, Control Apostrophe to turn off our grid, Photoshop's grid, so that you can see that our dungeon grid is there with its walls. We have our working dungeon. Now, if you wanted the grids to be a little bit more faint and not so painfully apparent, one thing you can do when you double click your layer to get your layer style, under Pattern Overlay, there's the opacity slider, or opacity, and just lower it. Lower it, lower it. Lower 25%, right? Now, the thing is since that the fill layer that this mask is masking is gray, the gray is now showing through. So that's how you get some colors and textures in addition behind your grid. I can just simply make sure I have that layer selected, not the mask, and go to my bucket fill it all with white, and it brightens it back up. I can do that with any color, including brown, green if I want, you know, it's all relative. But let's keep it fairly old-ish school, go black and white all the way. And that's the gist of how we make our dungeon maps, how we do our dungeon layouts. It is really that easy. I'm thinking this hallway should be a little bit wider, right? Let's turn off that layer and just go back to our selection tool, turn back Photoshop's grid back on, and start with the marching ants. I want to widen that corridor and make this one area sort of like the main mining facility, then adding some mine shafts. That's going to go off camera, but just add some nice mine shafts. And then if these are the bunks and this is the starting area for the bunks, let's do what? I don't know. Let's add some more little bunks. These part of guys, these part of dwarves, they don't have very good living quarters, do they? In such small areas. This is a halfling mine. That's why the bunk areas are so small. They don't really need all that much space, do they? I'm being RPG racist. That's terrible. Can't believe I'm just putting those poor halflings through this. No. Phil. Where's Phil? There we go. Boom, boom. I'm gonna invert that color. Deselect. Alright, I'm going to switch to a brush to start drawing the mining layer, because we need that freestyle look for mines, right? Oh, no, that's selected to white. I wanted to be able to see. Why can't I? Do I have two whites? What the hell? Because that's like, oh, that's why. when you start drawing your cave section, go to view and turn your snap off. And the only reason I'm keeping the Photoshop grid turned on is that I can know about how big the passages are. So I can draw them according to, that's roughly 2 inches. Squiggle in, squiggle out. The start of a new mining section. We can go in there and chop it up a bit to make it a little more, miney like. Let's I know you probably hear that door. That thing squeaks like a mad ninja. This is the most successful mine in all of Mine Terror. Why is it Mind Terror? I don't know why it's Mind Terror. I know, and you're whispering to me, distracting me from what I'm doing. That is a participant, a silent participant that is not being very silent. But yeah, this is pretty much how you do it. That is a fresh, brand new off-shot mine that is actually continuing into nothing right now. It's a brand new mining shaft. Mine there is just started. Alright. So make that look like it blends in a bit. Yeah, we should have one that's maybe it started off as that. And they're like, hey, you're digging too close to the quarters over here. This one. I guess this is the oldest of the mine shafts. Let's actually make it go off screen. Why? I don't know. Maybe we can connect this to be a mine, and this is the shaft that eventually connects to another subterranean map, such as the super cave. Right, I'm going to turn Photoshop's grid off, Control, so I can get a little, well, I'll just show you real quick so I don't have to get all the little stuffs. Again, turning off that, we can actually paint in by using the brush on the masking layer to draw these in. Expanding this hall, alright, following your marching ants. And the ants go marching on. Now what I'm going to do is just put the basics of the mine shafts in. Going to lay both the mine shaft and the cave system together. Now going on the cave system map, I do the exact same as I did with the mining system, but because we set up the patterns differently, you do get that different pattern. Matter of fact, I think I want the shaft to be this, like the dirt comes in. I'm going to take this off of the shaft layer. Maybe down to there. Ah, no. Don't unmask. Just mask. And there we go. Deselect it all. Later on in the process, we will... Oh, shucks. It seems to be the wrong thing to do. Later on in the process, we can clean that up by collapsing the layers and then erasing it accordingly. But until then, let's add some hatchy stuff. Hatchy hatch. Again, same exact process. go to your background hatch layer, click on the mask, make sure you have white selected, and just unmask. And trace. Now this is just a tracing game. You can get in there with a zoom and start adding and erasing lines on a different layer with the hatchy hatch. If you want it to look a little bit more broken up, a little less like an actual pattern. But for now, we're just doing it this way to begin. These are the techniques in which I'm using and sharing with you so that you can learn these techniques if you don't already know them and develop them further if you so wish. And if you don't want to make maps, you at least know now the amount of trouble that I go through when I make mine. Or anybody, actually. And that's pretty much the hatchy hatch layer. Throw in some hatchy hatches just randomly, or not, who cares? Just you can only just meditate while you do this. Go in and do more work, do more work. Anyway, another dungeon mining facility made, and it is an 8.5 by 11, 8.5 tall by 11 inches wide. So you have quite the map. If these are simply 5-foot squares on the grid, you know, the 15-foot wide tunnel, not so bad. 5-foot wide tunnels, maybe a little squeeze here. Use the squeeze rules. But if these grid points are indeed 10-foot squares, this area becomes pretty large pretty quick. And that's it. So, I am insane about adding layers and folders and getting a lot of stuff going. So I'm actually going to create a folder, select all this stuff, and drop it in that folder. Name this folder, Quick Mines, because we did the mines quickly. Holding, right click, duplicate group. Right, Quick Mines copy. And then I will just collapse Quick Mine copy by merging the group. Right? Merging the group. And just go in here. Pick up the brush. Make sure white is on the brush. And just paint away the differences. This little stuff. So being a little bit of a stickler right now. Probably don't need to be. But I am. So that's just the general gist of how this is getting done. But you have a mine. All that's left next is to add doors to the mine and some map icons. Map icons I'll cover in later episodes. Until then, my name is Nelson. This has been Infinite Roleplay Map a Day. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it informative, entertaining, and stuff. Don't forget, I'll throw the link below to my Drive-Thru RPG store. I'm adding maps. I've added an adventure in there. Most of what I have on there is pay what you like, so you can grab it up for free, but I will most definitely appreciate you compensating my time in whatever fashion you think it's worth. So until then, peace.